się zdegradowany w pewnym sensie.
We all felt degraded
Został wtłoczony.
because we were put in terrible hygienic circumstances. There were no toilets. Sometimes our train stopped in the middle of nowhere. Soldiers with guns screamed at us to use under the train as a toilet. And there was no difference, women, men, children. That was very humiliating. It opened our eyes. That was the world we were about to enter.
W pewnym sensie, w jaki świat my wkraczamy.
Sometimes the train stopped at the railroad stations, and then our parents, all the adults got off the train for p.2, which was hot water with sugar. This is what we ate.
There was a pregnant woman next to us. We did not look. I heard a baby crying. The baby was just born. Can you imagine in these terrible circumstances?
After a few days, the train stopped and they took a dead child from its mother. You can imagine the child had been dead for days. The mother, she was in such despair, crying and screaming.
People got sick more and more. Typhus, enteric fever, and also dysentery. We got to Chelyabinsk. It was Siberia. Plains, birch forest, forest all the way to the horizon.
We got to Omsk. At the railroad station, we saw in big letters, "Farewell Russia, welcome to Siberia."
The train stopped at Omsk, and soldiers took us out of the freight cars to get some food. They were armed. People were looking at us, but they were not surprised. Over the years through Omsk went thousands of trains carrying deported people. But the Russians were moved. Now Polish people are being deported.
Wiozą Polaków.
The train departed, leaving some freight cars full of people on the railroad siding. We were inside those cars and told to wait. So we waited all night. The next day, Kazakhstanis with ox-driven carts arrived, and we traveled on them going east for maybe 7 or 8 days. And so we arrived at Kalinin, cooperative farm.
Zatrzymaliśmy się w małym miasteczku.
The train stopped in a small town, Zawodogowka. We were transferred to a shorter train, which traveled only 18 kilometers. And from there, we walked about 45 kilometers.
45 kilometrów.
podjeżdżały ciężarówki.
Trucks picked us up and distributed us to different villages and small towns. We ended up in the country town named Mardievka.
Właśnie.
Do naszego kołchozu.
From Novosibirsk, to get to our destination, to the place where we were to be deported, we sailed 1,000 kilometers on the River Ob.
Nasze dwa wagony zaś
Our two freight cars of about 80 people were detached at Novosibirsk, and we went south to the Samara area.
samarski rejon.
In this cooperative farm, there were perhaps about 15 to 20 deported Polish families.
Zawieźli na Wieruski.
They deported us to Ruski Poszołek. There they took my father, immediately to clear the forest, and he had to work so hard.
Gdzie musiał ciężko pracować.
Dostałem
I was
pracę.
not assigned to work on the cooperative farm, but to chop wood in the forest, and there I did not know how it was possible. But there in Siberia, I got a camel to work with me pulling my load.
Drzewo.
Przy karczowaniu
When people were cleaning out the Siberian forest, they had to make a quota every day. We were not used to physical labor. We could not make the quotas.
wyrobić tej normy.
Everyone got a job according to their health condition to a mine.
Część poszła
Some of us went to cut grass for the winter,
trawę na zimę.
and some of us,
Nie przydzielona
this was my assignment,
do budowy
went to build cowsheds.
dla tych krów.
Ja zaczęłam
In the beginning, immediately after we came, I herded calves, about 100 of them.
jakieś 100 cielaków.
Nie było żadnych dróg.
There were no wires. It was not a concentration camp like Auschwitz. It was not like a jail. There was no need for that because there was no place to go.
Nigdzie iść i tak.